Hello, my name is Michael Lynch, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in Michigan's 2nd Congressional District. At the risk of boring you, I want to give you a little bit of history lesson. I was born during the Dwight D. Eisenhower administration, and I know for many of you that would be like someone telling me when I was young that they were born during the Herbert Hoover administration. So I know that feels like a long ago and far away, but Dwight D. Eisenhower did a number of things that still to this day make this country the great country that it is. And one of the things he did was he created a tax program where a lot of the burden for creating the infrastructure that we appreciate today, interstate highways, big bridges, things like that, were funded by the highest income people in the country. Now, those people realized that much of their wealth, much of their income came from the American public. And I'm not saying that they were necessarily happy to pay high taxes, but they certainly understood why they were called upon to help build the administration, to build the infrastructure in this country. Another thing that Dwight D. Eisenhower, and remember, he was a five-star general during World War II, and he said that every missile launched is a meal out of a child's mouth. So when we think of how we're going to allocate our resources, we might just want to think about who's benefiting and who is losing out. When I studied economics, we talked about a philosophy called guns and butter. Guns and butter basically comes down to the notion of, does a nation's wealth, should it be spent on defense and armaments and that sort of thing? Or should it be spent on the welfare of the people and how to improve everyone's life? Let's move forward a few years to Richard Nixon. During this time, Richard Nixon made a deal with a big insurance CEO, and he decided that he was going to move medicine from nonprofit to profit. Yes, once upon a time, medicine in the United States was not for profit, which is why we had all these hospitals such as St. Mary's, Cedar-Sinai, thank you, Seventh-day Adventist, etc. These were all charitable organizations that funded and ran hospitals and other medical facilities. But Richard Nixon decided that it was better if we privatized medicine. I had some friends at the time whose fathers were dentists or doctors or their mothers worked in the medical field. And they came to school complaining about how their parents were complaining. They would talk about how their parents were complaining about the fact that they had to do so much paperwork now that the laws had changed. And according to a friend of mine who recently graduated from medical school, he said that 30% of all medical expenses go toward administration, which means only 70% of the money we spend for healthcare goes to actually taking care of people. The rest of it just goes to, again, just somewhere to administration. Since 1984, the cost of healthcare in the United States has gone up steadily, while it has not really gone up much in other developing countries, other developed countries, other big industrial countries. However, our outcomes have gotten worse. So not only are we spending money, we're getting less for the money we're spending. Let's fast forward to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan had this idea, they referred to it as Reaganomics, that corporations, first of all, should start being able to buy back their stock. Now, why is that such a big deal? And for those of you that didn't know, no, corporations were not always allowed to buy back their own stock. Well, before they were allowed to buy back their own stock, they had to reinvest their profits in their employees, in capital improvements to grow their companies, etc. Once it got to the point where they could buy back their own stock, all of a sudden, all that did was made the top stockholders and the corporate executives that much richer. And again, if you look at the disparity between CEO salaries and line employee salaries, the multiplier has spread amazingly, again, since 1984. When Reagan became, and Reagan, by the way, he was governor of California when they did away with Californians' rights to attend a state university for free. That's right. At one time, if you graduated from a California high school, you could go to a California state university for free. That includes Cal Berkeley, that includes UCLA, that includes California Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo or Cal Davis or any of these schools. You could go for free, but Ronald Reagan changed that. He came and he said that government is not the solution, government is the problem. So he is saying that an institution that was created to serve and protect the people was the problem. Well, an economist named Milton Friedman out of the University of Chicago very quickly came along behind him and said that the only responsibility that corporations had was to their stockholders. So we have Ronald Reagan telling us that we should trust corporations, while Milton Friedman, who Ronald Reagan admired and copied a lot of his economic policies, said that corporations are in it only to create greed, to create money for the top stockholders. Again, this just created that much larger a margin between the haves and the have-nots, between the people who were at the top of the economy and those who were constantly chasing. Another thing Ronald Reagan did was he eliminated something called the Fairness Doctrine. Before he eliminated the Fairness Doctrine, radio stations, TV stations had to prove that they should be allowed to stay in business. They had to fill out forms to the Federal Communication Commission, and any complaints that they received, they had to forward to the Federal Communication Commission, and the FCC would decide whether that radio station or TV station or whatever would be allowed to maintain its license. With the Fairness Doctrine gone, not only was one of the first things that Ronald Reagan did was grant citizenship to Rupert Murdoch, because the law was that if you were not an American citizen, you could not own media in this country. He granted citizenship very quickly to Rupert Murdoch, and Rupert Murdoch, created a lot of these ultra-conservative, ultra-radical media, be it the USA Today, be it the New York Post, be it the London paper, a Paris paper, and even Fox and Fox News. So when Fox News, which of course we know by and large is not news, it's opinion, that was all created based on a decision that Ronald Reagan had made. So if you're wondering how we got here, we got here out of people's desire for money, chase for greed. And that is not what a society should be built upon. A society, to my mind, should be built on helping one another and growing one another and pulling together to get things done. And that's the way it used to be. Seriously, that is the way it used to be. We used to come together. We used to pull together. We used to be able to rely on each other. But now we're fractured. And now we can't, many of us cannot agree on a lot of different things. And to me, that's not America. That's not the America I was born into, nor is that the America that I really want to live in. So, Michigan deserves better. America deserves better. I think that better could be Michael Lynch. And I am Michael Lynch, and I am running for U.S. Congress in Michigan's 2nd Congressional District. And I would appreciate your vote come November. Thank you.